Look at the black mirror in your hand. Not the glowing screen with its endless stream of colorful distractions, but the dark, cold reflection of your own eyes staring back at you in the silence. You are the observer. You are the digital ghost. You move through the online world like a shadow, watching the loud parade of filtered lives, the desperate declarations of happiness, and the carefully staged tragedies of strangers. But you never hit the share button. You never post your victories. You never broadcast your breakfast. And you certainly never display your pain for the world to judge. To the outside world, you are a mystery. To the algorithms designed to track human behavior, you are a ghost, an anomaly that refuses to be categorized. But to me, you are a masterpiece of psychological and biological engineering. You have likely spent your entire life being told that you are too sensitive, that you need to toughen up, or that you shouldn't take things so personally. People have looked at your silence and called it shyness, or worse, they have called it a lack of confidence. But they were wrong. They were looking at your standard definition life while you were recording the world in 8K resolution. Your silence is not a defect. It is a high-performance radar system. You don't stay invisible because you have nothing to say. You stay invisible because you have realized that in an age of constant noise, silence is the only form of true control left. You have realized that when you turn a sacred personal moment into content, the soul of that moment evaporates. Welcome to the Behavioral Psychology Lab. Today, we are going to perform a deep dive surgery on the silent rebellion of the digital ghost. We are going to decode why the most intelligent, sensitive, and high-value individuals are choosing to become invisible. This is not a video about being antisocial. This is a journey through the neuroscience of your hardware, the survival patterns of your childhood, and the profound freedom of owning your own life without needing witnesses. But before we dive into the power of your silence, we must confront a dark and uncomfortable truth. There is a reason why the spotlight feels like a physical threat to you. There is a reason why you feel a phantom pressure in your chest every time you think about sharing your world with others. It traces back to a time when you were 7 years old, staring into the eyes of a parent who was falling apart. We will uncover how your childhood as an emotional caretaker turned you into a digital ghost in just a moment. Let us begin with your hardware. To understand why you don't post, we have to look at your brain. This isn't just a personality quirk, it is hardwired biology. Research shows that your brain processes information differently than 80% of the population. Think of the human brain like a camera. Most people's brains are recording the world in standard definition, maybe 720p. It is an efficient picture. It gets the job done without taking up too much memory. But your brain is recording in 8K resolution. This upgrade in your system is what neuroscientists call low latent inhibition. Most brains are designed to ignore 90% of what they see and hear to save energy. They treat the background noise, the texture of a wall, or the subtle shift in a stranger's expression as irrelevant. But your brain treats everything as relevant. You process the hum of the refrigerator, the mood of the person sitting next to you, and the hidden motives behind a simple text message all at once. This is why social media is a war zone for your nervous system. While others see a simple photo of a friend on vacation, your brain is engaging in deep semantic encoding. You are unconsciously connecting that image to your past memories, predicting the future outcomes of that person's choices, and analyzing the silent cry for attention hidden in the caption. You aren't overthinking. You are running a complex simulation to ensure the best possible outcome. This is not a bug. It is high-level computation. But carrying this 8K radar comes with a massive cost. Because you process everything so deeply, you reach your limit faster. When you suddenly shut down or feel the need to hide in a dark room, that is not you being dramatic. That is your RAM being full. Your system has overheated. Science has a beautiful metaphor for this. Most people are like dandelions. They are resilient and can grow anywhere, even in a crack in the sidewalk. They are fine regardless of the environment. But you are an orchid. If you try to grow in a harsh, noisy, or toxic environment, you will wither. You have probably spent years blaming yourself for not being a dandelion. But the research on vantage sensitivity shows something amazing. When an orchid like you is placed in the right environment, with the right light and the right care, you don't just survive. You bloom with a complexity and beauty that a dandelion can never achieve. Your choice to stay invisible online is your way of moving yourself into the greenhouse. You are protecting your resolution from the sidewalk noise. Now, let us walk down the hallway of your memories to the door you keep locked. Why did your brain decide that invisibility was the only way to stay safe? It starts quietly, often at 7 years old. You were staring into the eyes of a parent who was too broken to show up for you. Maybe it was addiction, maybe it was anger, or maybe it was just the hollow silence of someone who couldn't regulate their own emotions. And without words, something ancient clicked in your small mind. If I don't hold everything together, no one will. This is how a child disappears psychologically. You became the emotional thermostat of the household. You learned to read the room before you spoke. You became the caregiver, the peacekeeper, and the therapist for the people who were supposed to protect you. Psychologists call this parentification. The world praised you for it. They told you that you were so mature for your age, that you were an old soul, that you were so responsible, but no one asked you, at what cost? The cost was your authenticity. You developed hypervigilance. You were always scanning for danger, walking on eggshells, learning that love was a transaction. You gave peace, and maybe you got safety. You learned that your needs were dangerous, and theirs were urgent. This is why, as an adult, the idea of being seen online feels like an invitation for a burden. In your mind, being noticed is linked to being criticized or being forced to fix someone else's problems. You remember the hurtful words, don't you? The derogatory comments about your appearance, the provocative questions about why you walk or talk a certain way, the selfish wishes from a parent who said they regretted having you. These comments diminish your entire sense of identity. They lead to self-harm, early depression, and a deep-seated belief that you don't deserve to exist in this world as you are. So, you chose silence as your citadel. You learned that an axe does not remember the cuts it makes, but the tree it falls remembers them all. You are that tree, and your silence is the bark you have grown to protect your inner fractures. When you don't post, you are saying, you cannot cut what you cannot see. Let us talk about the digital world you are hiding from. We live in a culture that rewards display and praises noise. Social media has subtly reshaped how we define ourselves, forcing us into a state of identity crafting. It is an unconscious audition for belonging. Every caption, every photo, and every status update is a message saying, "This is who I am. Do you approve?" But when you stay in the shadows, you are conducting a quiet rebellion. Psychologists have found that people who refrain from posting often score higher on self-restraint, introspection, and emotional independence. You aren't trying to prove who you are trying to understand it. In a world drowning in performances, your silence is a rare form of control. It is the power to choose what the world doesn't get to know. Think about the concept of psychological ownership. It is the feeling that a thought, a memory, or an experience belongs deeply to you. The moment you post it, that sense of ownership fades. The experience becomes shared property, open to judgment, misinterpretation, and mockery. By keeping your moments private, you are guarding your ownership over life itself. You are keeping your memories untouchable and pure. The social media machine is fueled by dopamine loops. Every like and every comment is a hit of validation that trains your brain to equate your value with digital applause. But you have resisted that loop. That is not disinterest. That is discipline. It takes profound self-awareness to resist a system designed to keep you hooked. You have a strong internal locus of control, meaning your sense of worth comes from within, not from external approval. You don't need the digital echo of 1,000 strangers to believe that you are enough. Ironically, the quietest people online often have the loudest thoughts in their minds. You aren't absent, you are overflowing. You just choose stillness instead of spectacle. You understand something most don't. Not everything you experience is meant to be witnessed. Sometimes, the most profound growth, grief, and transformations happen quietly, unseen, and unposted. This is where identity is formed, not performed. You might be asking yourself, is my silence a sign of peace or a sign of fear? For many digital ghosts, it is a mixture of both. You may feel like you are falling behind while everyone else is performing progress. You may worry that your silence makes you invisible or insignificant. But let us look at the truth. One of the most powerful things you can do is realize that your maturity was never the problem. The problem was that you had no choice, but now you do. You can choose softness. You can choose to rest. You can choose to stop managing the emotions of every person in your feed and start honoring your own. This brings us to the process of shadow work and reparenting. No one is coming to rescue the child you buried under years of responsibility. You are the only one who can go back and hold their hand. You have to be the one to say, I see you now. I hear you now. You were just a child, and you didn't deserve to carry that weight. You get to rest now. This process is brutal because it asks you to feel the grief you never had time to feel. It asks you to sit with the rage, the sorrow, and the unmet needs. You have to mourn the birthdays where no one showed up and the innocence you lost while protecting people who should have protected you. But that grief is proof that you are healing. What was once frozen is finally melting. As you heal, your silence changes. It is no longer a hiding spot born of fear. It becomes a citadel of peace. You start to notice the simplicity of doing things for yourself again. Cooking without photographing it, traveling without tagging it, feeling without explaining it. In that space, something awakens, a self-awareness that doesn't need an audience. You start rebuilding real connections instead of digital ones. You begin to notice who checks in on you without the need for an update. You learn who remembers you without reminders. That kind of connection is raw, unbroadcasted, and infinitely more real. It feels heavier, warmer, and more permanent than 1,000 likes. Let us look deeper into the philosophy of your silence. In a world that constantly screams, "Look at me," choosing invisibility is a form of self-defense. It is saying, I exist beyond your perception. You might scroll through others' lives, nodding and smiling, sometimes even aching for them. You rarely project because you understand that not everything is content. There is a quiet beauty in walking through life without needing proof of every step. You aren't thinking about angles or lighting or captions. You are just there, fully alive, inside the moment instead of outside it. This is a level of presence that social media rarely allows. If you are a digital ghost, you probably have a strong sense of identity, security. You know who you are even when no one is watching. You are comfortable in your own company, and you don't need an audience to validate your worth. This isn't arrogance, it is peace. And here is the paradox. The people who don't post often have the most interesting stories to tell, but they save those stories for when they are sitting across the table from you, not across a screen. They measure connection in shared silence, in eyes meeting, and in laughter that doesn't need witnesses. These are the people who carry worlds within them. You might have been called a liar, or sensitive, or dramatic in the past, but those labels were just reflections of other people's inability to handle your depth. When your parents called you sensitive, they were really saying they were too numb to understand your resolution. When they called you dramatic, they were really saying they were too absent-minded to understand that words can hurt. The axe will never remember the cuts, but you, the tree, have grown strong because of them. You have deep roots, you have a thick bark, and you have the ability to stand tall in the silence of the forest. You don't need to be cut down and turned into a billboard for everyone to see. You can just be. So, what is the prescription for the digital ghost? First, stop trying to install a tougher filter. You cannot change your biology, and you shouldn't want to. The world has enough numbness. We don't need you to be thicker-skinned. We need you to be exactly who you are. But you must protect your gift, build your boundaries, honor your need for silence. Second, curate your life to support your sensitivity. You are an orchid. So find your greenhouse. Spend time in environments that don't overstimulate your nervous system. Surround yourself with people who value your depth and don't demand a performance. Third, practice the stoic silence. Before you feel the urge to react to something online, take a breath and smile internally. Remember that your worth is not linked to someone else's opinion. You possess a high-performance radar, and you can see the storm before it hits. Use that early warning system to protect your peace, not to engage in someone else's chaos. Fourth, realize that your maturity is now a choice. You can choose to be mature and responsible when it is necessary, but you can also choose to let your inner child play. You can indulge in the things you enjoy without fear of being called cringy. You can express your feelings honestly to the few people who matter. Fifth, understand that your silence is a statement. In a world of fragments, staying whole is the ultimate rebellion. You are no longer editing your life into something digestible for the masses. You are living it in all its messy, beautiful, and unfiltered complexity. The next time someone tells you that you are too quiet or that you should post more, remember the truth. You are seeing the world in 8K resolution. You are processing the beauty that everyone else misses. You are holding your own hand. You are the master of your citadel. To conclude, I want to tell you that you are not alone. There is a tribe of ghosts just like you, watching and observing and feeling everything deeply. We are the ones who understand that being unseen is not the same as being alone. We are the ones who know that silence is not emptiness. It is a full, vibrating presence. Your growth, your heartbreaks, your private victories, and your quiet acts of kindness, they live in your memory, not in the media. And that is enough. The things that shape you most will rarely make it to a feed. They happen in the dark, in the quiet, and in the private spaces of your soul. You are no longer a child who has to disappear to be safe. You are an adult who chooses to be invisible to stay free. There is a massive difference. One is a prison, the other is a kingdom. Carl Jung once said, "Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be." Your silence is the space where that remembrance happens. It is where you find the child you buried and tell them that the world is finally quiet enough for them to come out and play. You never had a childhood, but you still have a future, and this time, you are the one holding the pen. You get to write a life that doesn't need a caption. You get to build a world that doesn't need a witness. You get to be whole in a world that rewards fragments. I am the storyteller of the Behavioral Psychology Lab, and I am honored to witness your silent strength. Put down the phone, step away from the noise, breathe in the quiet. You are here. You are enough. You are seen by those who truly matter. Stay deep, stay silent, stay free. And as always, thanks for watching.